the podcast that brings together those navigating the complexities of rare diseases. I'm your host, Joanna. Today we have a remarkable guest joining us, Christina, the voice behind Speaking with Spoons. Speaking in Spoons. Christina's journey is with a rare condition, namely Trigeminal Neuralgia, Hemiplegic migraines, and her latest diagnosis of Primary Sclerosing Cholangitis, or PSC, which I will probably be referring to it from now on, is a little easier to pronounce, has been nothing short extraordinary. Through her own podcast, she has become a beacon of support and understanding for those facing similar challenges. But our conversation today goes beyond sharing stories. It's about forging connection. We aim to not only to shed light on these often misunderstood conditions, but also to explore potential treatments and clinical trials. Because of us, every breakthrough for the 95% of without approved treatment is a victory worth celebrating. So grab your headphones and join us as we dive into into a conversation that transcends the boundaries of rare disease, weaving a tapestry of empathy, resilience, and hope. Welcome, Christina, to Rare Connection, and let's make some rare connections together.
Thank you for having me. I just when you reached out to me and I heard about the concept of your podcast, I was just so excited because it's just so important to get the information about rare diseases out there. Because, and I know the phrase that they teach, about, we're zebras.
Right.
Like they teach in medical school, if you hear hoofbeats, think horse, not zebra. But if you think of the rare disease community as a whole, versus just, maybe there's 1 in 500 of one particular disease, but us as a community, we're a raging herd across, the country. And it's important to know these disorders and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for what you do. Mm-hmm.
And I know your podcast is similar to it, but I switched mine from Nutrition Equity, which was the podcast before, to this one. Mainly, my focus to begin with was the Medical Nutrition Equity Act, and that was covering about 16 different conditions at the time. It changed a little bit this year as we go into about the 20th year fighting for that bill to pass, and it is passed through House right now, but not through Senate.
Oh, that's incredible! If you need any written testimony, anything,
right? It hasn't passed through House, but I mean it has been
right to the Senate. Yeah,
but we do need a Senate Republican right now.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So, see, primary is starting off here. Primary, the PSC, is a lesser known condition. Can you shed light on some of what it entails and how it affects your daily life?
Sure. I was actually just diagnosed with this last week. And wasn't expecting it. It is a rare autoimmune condition of the biliary, and it causes inflammation and fibrosis or scarring around the biliary and also of the liver. which can lead to the need for often liver transplant. And currently there is no treatment. Like you had mentioned earlier, there is the possible option of there is a clinical trial going on. For me, it started about 2 years ago. Because of I've got a bunch of conditions. My journey started with Ehlers-Danlos, and the version I have is not rare. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, but it all started. I've had to kind of learn to look at my my test, everything, even notes that doctors write, kind of like a hawk, and just keep up to date with that because. And I know I started noticing like levels in my liver enzymes kind of fluctuating. And so I went to my doctor about it and they said, don't worry, it doesn't go that high and it's, ever so often. But I kept kind of like pushing and eventually they're like, okay, well, I got a sonogram of my liver and I maybe ultrasound, sorry, of my liver. Which showed fat in the liver, which they diagnosed as fatty liver, and then also 1 to 2 stage fibrosis. But she was also concerned about the possibility of an autoimmune condition. Mm-hmm. And it took, so she referred me to a hepatologist, a liver specialist. And fortunately, in our state, we have an incredible one local to me who does a lot of research and, publishes. And so I was like, that's the one I want to go to. And but it took any specialist these days, it takes 6 months to 1 or 2 years to get in, kind of all around. But so it took me a while to get in. And when I saw him, he did a fibro scan, which gave him a little bit more detailed. It still feels like a sonogram, like they go with the jelly and go around like where the liver area is. But it confirmed the fibrosis. And he was still thinking autoimmune, but not sure specifically which one, because there seemed to be a lot of contradicting information in like my medical testing that had been done. So what I was thinking and what we had talked about was primary biliary cholangitis, and also autoimmune hepatitis, which are also both rare disorders, but that I do believe have treatment. I'd never heard of this. And about a month ago, I had to have my gallbladder removed. And they went ahead and did the liver biopsy then. Mm-hmm. And the hospital said it's fatty liver and, that's what's going on. But when they sent the slides to him, he could see on there, he's like, your liver's fine. I'm looking at everything and yes, you do have some fat that I would expect at your age, and stuff in your liver, and particularly considering the lack of mobility that I have because of some other discussions or some other conditions we're going to discuss. But I was actually only level 1 fibrosis, which was exciting to me because it could have been worse. And I cried because just to have validation that it wasn't in my head, and I had pushed so hard to get people to look at this, and it didn't seem like something that was a big deal, but this is going to be a big deal because there is no treatment, and it can drastically alter your life. For me, the fatigue, I have Ehlers-Danlos, I have fibromyalgia, I have dysautonomia, things that cause fatigue in general. But talking with some of my friends that have it, like, I mean, everybody, there's a spectrum within disorders. So everybody feels things a different way. But I have, like, for me, sometimes it is like, it's like an elephant. I describe it that way, like an elephant sitting on top of my body, and like I just can't move, like that level of fatigue. And also, like, you get pain in your abdomen, which I've just always associated with GI issues, which I do need to get. They're actually sending me to GI because there's multiple IBD conditions that are associated with this. And I just always try to solve it dietarily on my own. You know, I know these things trigger me and these things, you know. So it'll be good to actually get some confirmation, and then maybe my primary care thinks I have word finding problems sometimes. The pancreas is also involved, like the pancreas and the gallbladder is problems was giving me problems with digestion. So now, having the gallbladder removed, we have to figure out, not put too much pressure on my liver to process things, because it's already going to have pressure from the PSC. Also from that, I've learned, dark urine, which I kept mentioning to people, and they're like, oh, that just means you're dehydrated. I drink this like multiple times a day with electrolyte mixes in it. So like, I was like, it feels like something else. But the dark urine, sometimes like clay colored stools, things like that. I'm still kind of learning. Like I said, I was not expecting this. I've joined a lot of support groups. The way I use those is I kind of pop in, I pop out, because sometimes there could be a whirlpool of scary information and people that are really angry, justifiably, but for me, it brings me down emotionally, and that's not what helps me move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And my doctor did mention we're getting an MRI, so he can he said for me, like, he could see all of the fibrosis. He's like, here's your two ducts, like the main and the small one. He's like, around it, it's like this. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, that's not good. But we're doing an MRI so he can see, is it the large duct, or like the main duct, or the small duct where the problem is. And then he mentioned a trial to see if that's something I might be interested in. And the next step would be, I guess, seeing if I'm a candidate, and also then me doing more research about the trial.
Yeah.
But I'm not anti-trial at all.
Right. Now, the thing with most of the trials is you can only be in one. I know there's one trial Ehlers-Danlos also. Yeah. And so, moving on, and you can find these trials a lot of times either on government sites or on the National Organization for Rare Disease, which is raredisease.org, I believe, if I'm correct. Let's see. Oh, you mentioned. We already went over the clinical trial on that one. Let's see. How do you balance uncertainty of living with a rare condition like PSC with maintaining hope for future treatments and breakthroughs?
I think in a way I'm lucky that I started battling health issues like even as young as a child. So it's been a slow development of my body slowly kind of like collapsing. Like I had to give up to stop working completely at the age of 31. I just had to, and that's a huge grieving process. But what also I think was a gift for me was I grew up in the theater as a kid, and you kind of learn. I mean, there's theater games. You learn to be adaptive, which I was never really good at because I'm OCD. I like things my way. But that was kind of in the back. And then when I started doing theater outreach and theater teaching, I mean, you go in with your lesson plan and you don't know, what kids are going to be there that day. You never guarantee. And then you don't know what they have faced before they got to you that day. So it slowly trained me in learning to be more adaptive and kind of going with the flow. I mean, I have my down days. My co-host Nate and I talk about it as the dark place. Mm-hmm. And we always, say you wouldn't be human if you didn't go to the dark place. But the goal is to try to find ways to not live in the dark place.
Right.
So I think it's been those things, and I mean, I have like a list of diagnoses, and it started, they build on, and so by the time I've gotten this one, I'm also kind of still in shock about it, honestly. So, I'm not sure I've hit, and that is part of the grieving process. And for me, I guess, and I'm trying to figure out funding because I do pro bono work as a life coach for people in the disability, chronic illness, rare disorder community, to try to help them navigate kind of the transition of what do I do now that I'm dealing with this. And I'm trying to figure out getting certification, like, one client at a time as I'm physically able, but helping other people kind of helps me in a way too. It gives me hope, and it makes me feel like I have a purpose. And I think having a purpose helps your body too, whatever that purpose is, even if it's for a long time, it was my service animal, Rue, who was my baby. She was my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And humor. I like to laugh. Laughing, and I've worked really hard at mindfulness and like figuring out a way for meditation for myself, because like typical ways of meditation do not work for me. So I figured out meditation doesn't have to be just what you assume, like being quiet and not, meditation has really helped me with all of this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So through Speaking in Spoons, you've built a community of listeners navigating various chronic illnesses. How do you ensure that PSC receives the attention and support it deserves within the community?
We are booked out for this season, and I'm looking at next season, and I would like to add an episode about that. And I think by then I'll feel more confident, and maybe know more a little bit about the clinical trial. I'm also kind of meeting people in these support groups. So it might be nice to bring somebody on that has lived with it longer, has gone through a treatment, like, those kind of things. We also do, we interview people with all kinds of disabilities. And what I've learned is even disabilities you wouldn't think are chronic, disability becomes chronic. Like like you look at someone who is maybe paraplegic, it still like there's so many other things that become attached to that disability through their life. It starts to become a chronic illness. So it's kind of learning the universality in our experiences and the individuality. We also offer special topics. So like each month there's a special topic episode and then a personal story of disability. So I would love to have maybe somebody from one of the organizations on to talk about PSC and trials and also Nate and I, my co-host, he has multiple sclerosis. And what we try to do is after each interview, the personal stories of disability, we discuss the interview, and then we also relate it back to ourselves and our own personal experiences. So that is another way. I also would like to maybe get into, lobbying is of interest to me, but maybe I could, right now I'm very focused in life coaching in the EDS and other like communities. And I would like to spread that out into like the PSC, hemiplegic, like those kind of things, offer my services in the rare disease world as well.
So, let's see. Moving on to one of the other diagnoses, quoting one of my previous people, he said that, and this is true for a lot of people in the rare disease community, some people collect stamps, some people collect coins. He says he seems to collect rare conditions. Which I love that.
I relate, yes.
Yeah. And let's see. Trigeminal neuralgia. With trigeminal neuralgia is often described as one of the most painful conditions known to man and known to medicine. Could you share your experience with living with this condition?
Yeah. I remember the week it kind of it first started. It took a while to get diagnosed, but it for me it was a stabbing. It was like an ice pick in my eye, and like light coming through the room. I literally had to take a blanket and go in my bathroom and just cover myself with the blanket. And it got to a point where my mom was like, "This is ridiculous, Christina. You need to go to a doctor." And I can be stubborn, and also was concerned about money and insurance at the time because I believe we were still in the process of trying to get disability. And we went to like an urgent care, and they're like, "Okay, you need to see a specialized ophthalmologist." So we went. They actually got me in on the weekend. They felt it was that emergent, and the pressure in my right eye had gone to 45. And my left eye had raised a little bit, not nearly as much. I was actually then diagnosed with Poshner-Schlossman's syndrome, which is another rare disorder connected with autoimmune conditions. But he's like, "I think you might also have glaucoma." But then the glaucoma specialist was like, "No, you're glaucoma suspect," which means we have to watch it every year. Your eyes just look kind of weird. But he's like, "We need to send you to a neuro-ophthalmologist," which I didn't even know existed. That's a cool specialty.
Yeah.
And what he did is he ran a bunch of tests, but his big thing was he took a light and he's shining in my eye and picking directions. And he said he could tell by the direction he shone the light in my eye that it hits the specific nerve, and he's like, you have trigeminal neuralgia. And I remember until we got me on medication, it was hell. Because it was not only my eye, like I was battling with it. It feels like electricity bolts through my face, and like around my lips. I had to be very careful. And it'll feel like someone's like shooting electricity up my nose sometimes, or an ice pick in my ear. And at the time where I live, and at night is really bad because of like headlights coming at you. If they come, I have to like hide. I did. Nerve pain is just a different kind of pain. And I tell people, I'm like, pain is my most constant companion. So I do feel fortunate that I'd already been living with pain up to this, but this was a whole other level. And they were doing construction around near my apartment, and simply the vibrations of construction outside would trigger the trigeminal neuralgia for me. And so my dad figured out, he's like, well, let's get foam, and we'd stack it up under like my bed. But that worked a little bit, but it got so bad. My doctor actually then started working me up for MS, thinking I had that, and gave me a dose of IV steroids, which then gave me steroid psychosis. And that was a whole other thing, but it made everything go away. And then now I'm on, like, they tried everything. They were doing all kinds of different narcotics, things under my tongue, like everything. Nothing worked. It wasn't until I got till the IV steroids, which is one of the reasons my current headache specialist thinks it might be connected to my migraine. But I will tell you that my carbamazepine, which is one of the treatments for trigeminal neuralgia, until I was given that, this facial nerve shooting, stabbing kind of pain, nothing touched it. And then when it was raised, like, I don't experience that as much anymore. And I'm just so grateful, because it's awful. I have had an abscess before, which I would kind of like, that went untreated for like a week because they were trying to say it was my trigeminal neuralgia. So I wasn't given any pain meds. So you kind of just, when you're in these level of pains, for me, I just have to focus on my breathing, which I luckily learned in theater, and then just kind of try to take myself to a different place, outside of my body, happy memories. Or I also have a mantra. I'm like, I survived steroid psychosis. I can survive anything. And then I remind myself, there's a point, your body can only survive so much pain before it passes out. So I was like, if I just keep, eventually my body will take care of me. And I've passed out many times from pain. So it does happen. And it's horrible that I have to experience it. But reminding myself kind of helps me calm down through the experience. And I've just learned you have to be your biggest cheerleader. Yeah.
So, so what are some of the triggers or factors that exacerbate your trigeminal neuralgia symptoms?
Light is the big one, and it's the angle. So it's not necessarily like head-on bright light or a sunny day. A sunny day can stink, but now I know that's my migraine. For the trigeminal neuralgia specifically, it is the angle of the light for me, and vibrations and things like that. And also pain. It's funny. A lot of these things seem to trigger each other. So like if I'm having one kind of thing being triggered and pain, my body is experiencing pain, it seems to trigger the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the immune conditions are connected. Let's see. How do you navigate daily life while managing the intense pain associated with this condition?
I try to keep a sense of humor. I allow myself to cry. If I want to scream, I allow myself to scream, and then I just let go and say, okay, what's next? Let's move on. If it gets to that intense level, there's the Calm app, which you can get on your phone. But what I love is they actually have it on HBO. And it's like imagery and I'm a very visual person. So depending on what the source of my pain is, I can then connect to the visual imagery and hear, Idris Elba and Nicole Kidman and Lucy Liu and all of in like calm, serene, voice narrating stories about those images. And it just kind of brings me to a more peaceful place. The other thing is the breathing and just reminding myself this will pass, eventually, worst case scenario, I pass out. But my body, I'm here for my body and my body is here for me. And I try to think of the people in my life who are there supporting me too, like the group that my family, but also like the family I've created through friends and my fur babies, and they know when you're in pain, so they'll be there, and just touching them and breathing really does make and if it's a light issue and I can't watch the HBO, I will often put like a light pillowcase over my eye. And I have a dark room. Like I use blackout curtains. I can't, it's like a night, it's like Alaska, literally because it's cold, because I don't regulate my body temperature, but also because it's with blackout curtains, and it's my happy, peaceful place for pain. Yeah.
What no, how do you find have you found any treatments we kind of went into this, but have you found any treatments or therapies to provide help, to provide relief, manage your trigeminal neuralgia symptoms?
The big thing is mindfulness. I actually did DM. I'm going to say this. It's a type of counseling. I do believe counseling is incredible, for everybody, but also anybody going through medical experiences, medical trauma, pain, all of this. It helps us kind of talk about what we're going through, but navigate it and get tools for coping. I loved DM dialectical behavioral therapy, because it really gets into mindfulness and reframing, and that like reframing the situation kind of thing. And that I found really helpful from a logical standpoint. I now have somebody I see who does EMDR, which is a specialized type of therapy for trauma. And I consider, I have other trauma in my life, but I do also consider a lot of the experiences we have, and particularly pain, it's medical trauma, and finding any kind of tool that we can use that has been helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. How do you advocate for yourself and educate others about trigeminal neuralgia?
The funny thing is, I don't think since my podcast is mostly about the guests that I bring on, and I do relate to them through myself. I realize I'm not talking about my conditions as much now that I'm talking with you, and I need to do that because they are important conditions for people. I talk about my experiences, but I think it's important to kind of, people are like, well, what is that disorder? What she's talking about? So I would like to do that better. I do talk a lot about self-advocacy. I've learned to be my own self-advocate because I've learned, the person that is going to be with you by your side from birth to death is you. So you have to learn, particularly in these situations, to stand up and talk for yourself. And it doesn't have to be in a confrontational way. A lot of it is just communicating your needs, your curiosity, asking questions. But then also, you do have a right. I mean, you do have a right to not be treated, to not be talked down to by any medical professional, to not be treated like it's all in your head. And if I kind of like to say it's just like shoes. If a shoe doesn't fit, you don't stick with it, right? So it's okay to go and look for a better fit because it should be a partnership. And I don't believe in this whole doctor shopping. I think it is actually quite smart to get multiple opinions, because every doctor has different experience, different knowledge that they bring to it, and some people may not see something that somebody else does. I know the next disorder we're getting into, I mean, I was misdiagnosed for 10 years. So, yeah, being told it was in my head. So it's good. It's healthy to, and the liver thing, the PSC, if I hadn't insisted and just kept repeating saying, I'm really concerned. I need us to just run some tests, do some looking, just, and, be as polite as you can be about it, but be, insistent, and if you have to, ask for a patient advocate, ask for a social worker, wherever you are. There are advocates within your community. They can help stand by you and do that. And then I think that also helps you learn how to do that for yourself, because it's very scary, I think, at first to do that. I think my theater training and the way I was raised with my parents, encouraged to have my own opinion and stuff, kind of has helped prepare me for being my own self-advocate. But I understand why that is scary for others, because we see the medical community as gods and all-knowing. But it is impossible for doctors to know, like, all of the details of all of the different conditions out there. They don't get that kind of time in medical school. So, like, they're not gods. Yeah. And that is okay. They're human. They make mistakes. It is not necessary. Like, it's not out of, I would say that most of the people that enter the profession do so for, wanting to help, but it is also do no harm. So if you feel like it is doing you harm, it is not the right place to be. Yeah.
So, okay. Next one. hemiplegic migraines are hemiplegic migraines can be debilitating and frightening. Can you describe what it's like to experience these migraines?
Wow. Yeah. I would say this has actually been my most debilitating condition. Mm-hmm. Migraines, and particularly abnormal migraines, are often related to Ehlers-Danlos. Like it's, but a hemiplegic migraine, when it first started for me 10 years ago, my dog barked, and she had a very high-pitched bark, and I just dropped to the floor. Mm-hmm. And couldn't move for a second, and I needed a friend eventually to help me get up. And I thought, maybe I have narcolepsy, because I have a lot of sleep disorders, and a doctor had mentioned that once, so I went in for testing, and they're like, no, not narcolepsy, but you just have a bunch of parasomnias, and I was like, okay. And then it just kept happening for like high-pitched noises or smells. Like I would just immediately drop to the floor, which was scary. It's dangerous. I wasn't having for those out there, a hemiplegic migraine looks like a stroke. So your whole right side will either experience weakness or complete paralysis. And for me, at the beginning, it was complete paralysis. And I get a little bit of drooping. I think that's also why I was misdiagnosed for so many years, because the little droop was something I could see and feel, but they couldn't see. I also get convulsions sometimes with it. You can get like stomach convulsions that are seizure-like, but it's part of the migraine phenomena, and which led me to first being diagnosed with psychological pseudoseizures for a long period. Then my POTS dysautonomia doctor was like, no, this is physiological pseudoseizures being caused by your POTS. So I appreciate him at least saying that. And then another neurologist was like, okay, this could be MS, or Sjogren's, because Sjogren's and MS can have a lot of overlapping similar things, particularly neurologically, that people don't realize. I also started developing hemifacial spasms on the left side of my face, and I got diagnosed with that and dystonia. So I was having all of these diagnoses. And then when I got the steroids, it went away. I could start walking normal again. Unfortunately, I got psychosis, and had to deal with that off and on for like about 2 years, and that was terrifying. But then I started feeling better again. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go be a social worker and try to help people who've experienced what I've helped and get my MSW. And after one semester, horrible neck pain, we found out I had 6 loose screws in my neck from a botched fusion, which that's a whole other thing. But it also I started having the trigeminal pain again, and then I started having hemifacial spasms, and then I started having the hemiplegia, but way worse. Like the drooping looks like an actual stroke on my right side, like all the way down. It'll even get so bad that my right eye closes.
Just lost it.
That's okay. And for me, my leg is the worst part. Until I could get medicated, I would just instant drop fall, and I couldn't lift my leg. And then my right side, I would have trouble lifting my right arm. Like it would kind of be like that. But my fine motor in my right hand became really, really horrific. I got all excited actually last night because I snapped with my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Then that just happened because I haven't been able to do that in a while, in like over 2 years. But now it's being, you're trapped in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You're trapped in your body. You can hear everything. You can, but you cannot communicate what you're feeling. You can't advocate for yourself. You can't move. So for anybody out there that gets sleep paralysis, it's like that, but it lasts for me even longer. And usually people, like, at first they're terrified, rightfully so, that you're having a stroke. So you get CT scans and all that stuff. And with hemiplegic migraine, you are more susceptible to stroke. So it is good for them to occasionally do that. You just have to be careful because CT scans have radiation. So yeah, it's not, but when I got the diagnosis, I could hear the doctor telling my parents, this is a hemiplegic migraine. And I was like, there's no way this is a migraine. Like, I know it's not psychological, but there's no way this is a migraine. Like, migraines don't do this. So I didn't believe her at all. And she's like, I'm going to give her a migraine cocktail, and then she should start coming to within 15, 20 minutes. And like, I'm just laying there like, this is not going to work. And it worked. And I was just stunned. And since then, it's been a journey of discovering triggers, I have my current headache specialist thinks I might have MUMS, and they're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
With MUMS, and Migraine Babe has done a great job kind of like raising awareness with this, but with MUMS it's more like, with hemiplegic migraines, it's like the instant paralysis, the constant weakness, and the episodes tend to be shorter. With MUMS, it's the longer lasting episodes like I get. And when you do movement, and they are both rare, when you do movement, like if someone, like when you're getting a neurological exam, that triggers it.
Mm-hmm.
Walking can trigger it. Things, like small movement in my hand would trigger it. I kind of seem to, he said, like, I have a pretty severe case because I was bedbound for like a year, because, and I could get in and out, but I would very quickly, they would have to get me back in bed or laying on a sofa because the paralysis was just constant. Everything was triggering me. But they said the important thing to know is it's migraine phenomena. It's hemiplegia that you're having on your right side. So, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that do look similar while you're on that subject. It's had B12 deficiencies that look a lot like strokes, and also, if they go long enough, dementia also.
Yep. And that can go with these type of migraines as well. You have to be like, there are people that have been in comas. That's why I have to watch Being Stubborn, because I hate going to the ER. I hate going to the hospital. Just bright lights, sensory. It's like the worst place to be for migraines and trigeminal neuralgia. And it's just, so I just really try to avoid it. But, there is a point where it's like, okay, yeah, I need to go.
Yeah. Not exactly the greatest place anyway, but the ERs also are not great for me, but a lot of times doctors don't even look at your chart.
Nope.
I've had neurologists come in. I've had 2 strokes, but they'll come in and say, is there some reason why the left side of your face is drooping? Most people don't even notice it. And I said, yeah, if you looked at my chart, I would have known I had a stroke.
Yep. No, they don't look. It's terrifying, and particularly going to surgery, this past couple times, most recent thing, like I have multiple times, I have a cheat sheet with all my updated information, doctor's contact info, allergies, medicines, why I take them, and the schedule for them, like everything. Mm-hmm. None of it was in the chart. And I'm like, okay, the anesthesiologist really needed that information. So I had to sit with him and tell him, and,
right. Yeah. Become an educator. Quite a lot for your own core conditions.
Yeah.
Because nobody else is going to take the time to look it up.
No.
Which is a lot of reasons why I didn't believe in my own rare condition at first.
Yeah.
The main one, homocystinuria. But I do have multiples also. Not as many as most, thankfully. How do you differentiate between a typical migraine and a hemiplegic migraine? And what are the key symptoms?
Well, for me, I don't get typical migraines. But so are you asking how, like, to differentiate it for
somebody?
So for me, like, I mean, there's multiple different kind of migraines. Like there's or like they even call them headaches now. They're kind of clumping things together. Like there's cluster headaches. There's, which is one of the most severe forms of pain for headache. And then for me, the stroke-like symptom is actually the aura, like what you consider migraine with aura. Yeah. I do sometimes also have phantom smells before an event. The being on medication has slowed the collapsing, like the paralysis part or weakness part down, like the time before the trigger and that part down enough that I can recognize, like, I have a little bit of time to go, okay, this is about to happen, which can get me to a safe spot, which is why I usually try to use a rollator, like in the house, outside of the house. If it's going to be a place where there's going to be a lot of walking or something, it's for safety, wheelchair. I would say the biggest difference is the hemiplegia of the right side, the paralysis and the weakness. And for me, I get residual weakness. So even though I'm not always having a migraine, I always have weakness on my right side, particularly my right knee. Buckles when I walk, like it just doesn't want to hold, because I've had so many. I think that would be the best way to describe, is it's more like it's stroke like. It like if you didn't know it was a migraine, you would alert for stroke, and often they do alert for stroke if I call the ambulance.
Mm-hmm. How have hemiplegic migraines impacted your ability to work, socialize, and engage in your everyday activities?
Whoa, immensely. I was already on disability, but this, before this kind of started happening, I think I was having migraines before they just hadn't progressed to, I was having trigeminal neuralgia. That's what the doctor said. But when this started, and particularly the past 2, at least before, my friends could take me out sometimes. I could try to do things. I work a lot on pacing myself. I'm disabled, like, federally, in the sense I cannot work 40 hours a week, but I was always hoping that I could get back to part-time, and the dream, maybe figure out a job that I could do 40 hours a week. But it's just been, this has been, it completely destroyed the social aspect of my life. And I am an extrovert, and connecting with people has been my biggest way of, even, there's a lot of isolation that comes with disability, particularly when you can't drive, and you're not in a location that has, you know, public transportation, or a lot of it, or accessible public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it difficult. But also, I was bedbound, like, for the most part, bedbound, sofa bound, for quite a long time. Once they started getting the medicine, I would try to go do things, but then the simple act of doing that would weaken me and possibly trigger stuff. And then I'd be bedbound again for like a week. So really, the podcast was my way of giving myself purpose, and it was something I could do from my bed, and connect to other people, give people a voice, because I know often I felt voiceless, particularly with the hemiplegic migraines, but other things, like, you feel like your voice is taken away. And I wanted to give people an opportunity to share. But no, I like it. I mean, I got divorced at 31. And dating when you are disabled, dating when you have chronic illness, and particularly weird, rare things that kind of can confuse people. It's very complicated, because a lot of people want a hiking partner or something like that, something I will never be. And you really have to look for somebody that is adaptive as well. So it made that very difficult for me. Medication. I have an incredible headache specialist who has really got me to a place where I can get out occasionally, but I'm also aware that my body has flares. Mm-hmm. So I'm enjoying the kind of little hilltop that I'm at, but I'm trying not to overdo it too much. But I am prepared emotionally for the fact that there will be a valley, you know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, sorry.
So what advice would you give to others who may be struggling with hemiplegic migraines or similar conditions?
I think the biggest advice I would give is, for yourself, find ways to work on staying calm when it happens. Mm-hmm. Because I know the more stress I have, but also the more stress I have during an event, the worse it gets. I also would say prepare the people around you. So what I have is, I have two things. I have like a caretaker cheat sheet, and it's got all the questions that an ER would want to know. My full name, my birthday, my address. I also put preference of hospital, and particularly any hospitals not to go to, and then what I need if I'm having a hemiplegic migraine. I list all my doctors, their contact info, what they treat me for, allergies, meds in alphabetical. I try to do everything in alphabetical because it helps the nurses. And then also schedule of meds, in case they have to keep me. And I post this in multiple places around the house, but I also email it to my power of medical attorneys, which is what I would also suggest. Make sure you have power of medical attorneys and make sure you kind of educate them about not just what the disorder is, but how you experience the disorder. Because just when people go to read about it, there's everybody's experience. There's a spectrum of experiences within disorders. I also have a kind of how-to that's kind of like, if this happens, and I kind of like, when I have caretakers, when I have friends, I give it to them and talk them through it so that they know when something like this happens, ask me simple questions that can be answered with a yes, no. Thumbs up, and yes is thumbs up, no is thumbs down. It could be, I may have gotten overheated. Ask if I need ice, like simple things that'll help, because I know as a loved one, as a caregiver, it's overwhelming and terrifying when you see somebody go through this. Mm-hmm. And to have them feel like they're more prepared in advance, and if anything, they can at least go have something to look at on paper. It helps them advocate for you, and that's what you need.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so, I'm gonna cut this short because I think there's somebody at my door.
Sure.
So I'm gonna go to the ending on here. As we draw near the end of our conversation with Christina, I'm reminded of the profound importance of connection. Today, we explored the intricate tapestry of rare diseases, delving into the realities of trigeminal neuralgia, hemiplegic migraines, primary sclerosis cholangitis, through Christina's candid insights and unwavering resilience. We've gained a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by those involved, by those living with these conditions. If you are interested in joining the clinical trial for primary cholangitis, for primary sclerosing cholangitis, you can visit the National Organization for Rare Diseases, the NORD website, where there you'll find clinical trials for this and many other conditions, many of which this is the possible first treatment. Before we part, I want to take a moment to address the importance of mental health, primarily for those navigating chronic illness. If you or someone you know is struggling, please remember that help is available. You are not alone. If you're in crisis, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or 8255, or text HELLO to 741-741 for the crisis text line. Additionally, you can visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org or for more information or for more resources and support. Be sure to check out Christina's podcast, Speaking in Spoons, right here on YouTube. And you can join me next week as I talk with Iro Otuni about pigmented volundular synovitis, or PVNS. As we bid farewell to Christina, let us carry forward the lessons learned today. Let us continue to amplify the voices for those affected by rare diseases, championing their cause and advocating for greater awareness and support. Together, we create a world where no one feels alone, and no one feels alone in this journey, where rare connections pave the way for a brighter tomorrow. Thank you, Christina, for sharing your story with us. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on this empowering journey. Until next time, stay connected and stay resilient. This is Joanna signing off for Rare Connection. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.